So I got some big hype on Children of the Corn 3 from what I saw on the internet and YouTube and articles and whatnot. A lot of people like this one the best out of the first three. A lot of people say that it's way better than the second one, even though the first one is the classic. But I got a lot of people saying that Children of the Corn 3 was friggin' awesome. So let's give my thoughts on this one. Just finished watching it now. Got my notes ready to go. And let's talk about it. So, right at the beginning in the credits, you always get like this creepy children's score, not children's score, but like operatic kind of. Like in the second one, you got a lot of like children's vocals in a kind of operatic style. This one, you get this like identical track to O Fortuna, the like the overture orchestral song. You know it if you've seen Jackass the movie. It's the song that plays in the opening when they're going down the hill in the shopping cart. That song. It's identical to it. Now I don't know if it's the same composer that made another track, or if the the composers of the music for this film made a track, but to avoid copyrights, kind of copied it but made it in their own style. So could have been either or, but you listen to it and it's like this is O Fortuna. This is a poor man's O Fortuna for sure. Well, you can tell what they were going for, kind of thing. The creature makeup effect designer, his name is Screaming Mad George, which I found funny, so I thought I'd just write that down. Because I immediately took notice of his name and like, that's an awesome name, Screaming Mad George. Especially if you're like a makeup effects artist. It's pretty sweet. Okay, so we open up with this guy seemingly drunk. He's chasing these two kids down or through a cornfield. And you learn that their names are Joshua and Eli. And he wants to beat the shit out of Joshua. Clearly, he's both their fathers. And Eli is trying to protect Joshua because the father seemingly only goes for Joshua and has a problem with Joshua while he leaves Eli alone. And the father is chasing them both through the cornfield. They have a suitcase with them, so you can tell they're trying to run away. And Eli tells Joshua to just go because Eli can take care of the father. Eli has some mystical, evil child powers, just like reminiscent to the last films if you've seen them. And he casts these spells and starts to have the corn move just like you've seen in the previous films. Corn is grabbing the father, twists around his bodies, like tearing his legs apart. Actually ends up stitching the mouth and the eyes of the father, which I found to be a pretty, cool effect. And Joshua eventually gets away and Eli follows behind once the father is basically wrapped in cornweed stalks, kind of thing. It turns out they are escaping and they get adopted by a family, a woman named Amanda and a father named William. And for reasons unknown, I guess they were just looking for, like, they were looking to adopt, and they decided to adopt these, well, they call them Amish, but these small town runaway kids kind of thing. And clearly, they don't belong in the environment. This is called Urban Harvest for a reason, because it's all like, this one takes place in the city, like in the suburbs kind of thing. They don't belong at all. I mean, they have their whole, black suit get up, and they straight up look like they're from the boons. And you can tell Eli starts off extremely creepy. He doesn't waste no time being creepy and using the psychic, I would say, or telekinetic powers that he has because of his connection to the corn gods. What do they keep on saying? Again, the quote comes, they who follow behind the woods, the corn, I mean, it's somewhere in here. I'll find it. I wrote it down. He who walks behind the rows. There you go. Keep forgetting it, even though they mention it in every film, it seems. He who walks behind the rows. Joshua ends up grabbing this like glass ornament that apparently is really expensive, and then he puts it back because the father's like, yo, don't touch that, put it back. And then it's on the desk, and then somehow it just ends up falling, even though Joshua's not holding it anymore. Clearly Eli's using his little shit powers on that one. They're at the dinner table about to eat pizza, and Eli suggests that they say grace, and then he starts praying to the corn like Malachi and Isaac were doing in the previous films with their whole corn prayer, he who walks behind the rows kind of thing, and the parents are like, okay, that's kind of weird. Their first day of school is absolutely, actually, before they start their first day of school, I want to mention that one of the neighbors, this couple, is playing basketball, and Joshua goes up and says hello, and the guy who's playing basketball, he's like, he says something, he mentions like something about Joshua's clothes being like, yo, did they let the Amish kid in or something like that? And Joshua's like, what's up with the hat? Why do you have it turned backwards? So I found that funny. It came off as like a complete diss, like he was dissing the guy, even though he wasn't trying. He was literally confused and didn't understand why Buddy had his hat backwards. I found that funny. But then we get to the first day of school, and this is where it really starts to get funny. How much they don't fit in. First of all, Eli really has a problem with them splitting up. Like he's attached to Joshua's hip pretty much. And when the principal suggests that they have to be in separate classrooms, Eli, causes a big fuss about this. There ends up being a classroom fight in which they're both in, because when Eli goes to take a seat, this one kid is like, yo, I wouldn't sit there. And Eli's like, why? And he's like, because I think you might try to suck my dick. Eli just doesn't even know what he's talking about. And then he just sits down anyway, and then the guy gets up and tries to fight Eli, and then Joshua comes and pushes him, and then he like swings his knife all 90s style, and he's like, whoa, you want to mess with me? And it's kind of funny. And then like he threatens another girl, and then the girl's brother comes up and steps in, and it's this whole chaos classroom scene before the principal comes back. But it's complete like 90s style. This is 1995, so this film feels 1995 suburban Chicago. It takes place in Chicago too. That's another thing that a lot of people love about this film, is how much it feels like Chicago. Personally, I've seen other films that feel more like Chicago. One being Child's Play, another being Candyman. I would say both of those feel way more Chicago than this one, but it is what it is. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't feel Chicago, but a lot of people do like this film for feeling very Chicago. So Josh starts to make friends, and he he meets this girl named Maria, and Maria and him hit it off for some reason. I don't see any chemistry between the two at all, but she seems to take a liking to him, maybe because he's new and she's, not used to guys like him. Maybe she likes, she's into some type of guy that she's never experienced before, maybe. It starts off as a friendship, but you can tell it's gonna like blossom into something. But anyways, she talks him into joining the guys to play basketball on the court. And Joshua goes in to play basketball, and all of a sudden he's a professional basketball player. Like, what the fuck? When has this kid played? When has this kid played basketball a day in his life? Like, it makes no sense. This kid's creaming everybody. He's from Gatlin, a population of what, 12? Like, man, you would believe that what's his face? Woody Harrelson in White Man Can't Jump could play better basketball than this kid by looking at the two. You look at Woody Harrelson and you look at this kid, you're like, Woody Harrelson's gonna smoke this kid's ass. Well, this kid apparently plays better basketball than Woody Harrelson or anybody in the court of this film. Made no sense whatsoever. You kind of get an explanation later on why he's fitting in so much with this new crowd, but it still doesn't explain how he's so good at basketball, because there's no basketball on the corn. Okay, in the cornfields, there's no basketball. I think, that's just my assumption. Eli, he has this suitcase of corn, which when Amanda looks into this suitcase, it's just absolutely filled with bugs. I don't know if it's hallucination or not, because bugs come into play when it comes to the corn later on through the film. But when she opens it, it's bugs, and then when I think the husband or Eli, one of them, opens it, it ends up being fresh corn. And Eli goes to the back of the complex that they're living in, and it's shitty soil, but he places this corn to grow, and it's funny because he's offering the corn to whatever god he's worshiping, or like offering the corn. And it's hilarious because he speaks in this hybrid voice. He has his own childish voice, and then at the same time as he's speaking, he's like, it's so metal. It's like he's like, I offer this to you. It's like fucking Cannibal Corpse, along with a child's voice at the same time, talking at the same time. It was the funniest thing I've ever heard. It's so metal. It was like, wow, that's so metal. I offer this to you. He who walks behind the corn. I keep forgetting the fucking line too. He who walks behind the rose. He who walks behind the rose. Or whatever. Fucking black metal at its finest. So he plants this corn. This corn starts growing rapid fire. Like complete rapid fire. And eventually the story goes where he starts to give the corn out. And this corn is perfect. I mean, the corn is sweet and it grows like crazy. And the green around the corn is like, the father compares it to like fabric. Like it's you pretty much can't even penetrate it with your hands, at least. And the corn is just so perfectly produced. And Eli claims to his father. He claims that his father had produced the strain and that he helped produce the strain, and it's pretty much the perfect strain because it's growing in the shittiest soil, and it's growing at rapid speeds, like impossible speeds pretty much. But then he starts to feed this corn to the local people, and what happens is when he does, the adults that eat the corn end up basically barfing up bugs and dying horrible, miserable deaths. And the children who eat the corn end up following Eli as if he's a god. So he starts preaching to, first of all, in the church. That's a funny scene because the priest, Eli's basically being a little shit in church, and the priest starts yelling at him. Is like, since you think you know so much better than me, why don't you come up here and start talking? And then he does, and he starts, talking about Joseph, or was it Joseph? I think it was Joseph that he starts talking about, and how Joseph was like a kid like everybody, and eventually man came along and started polluting and started, throwing waste in the water and started to malnourish the world and stop things from prospering, like growing corn, for example. And then he starts to do this, and as more people eat the corn, especially the young kids, they start to follow him, and they start to worship him pretty much. While Joshua is, making friends and kind of like against all this stuff. It turns out that the reason is because they're adopted. So you find out they're adopted, which then starts to make a lot of sense when it comes to Joshua not being anywhere near as passionate or as crazy. Why did I say passionate? Crazy as Eli is. So there's definitely differences in them. Amanda tries to destroy the corn because she wants to have nothing to do with it, and she can't. And the father, William is his name, ends up wanting to profit off of the corn. He starts to get really greedy with it. He takes a sample of it to work, and he wants to make, because he's a businessman kind of thing, he wants to make a deal with all these people to spread the corn out and get rich off the corn, basically, because this corn is perfect. There's a scene where a homeless man seemingly a homeless man anyway, finds the garden of, or the rows of corn in this, behind this complex or whatever, eats one of them, and then the stalks again pierce right through his eyes, and it's pretty graphic. And then it takes his whole head off and brings it to the soil. So this homeless man's head is part of like growing this corn eventually, and gets into the corn. Eli eventually takes like little pieces of corn and puts it in the soup at his school so all the kids can eat the corn. That's how a lot of the kids start following him. Amanda's death is fantastic. She sees the homeless man's head in the dirt, and then she gets scared. She runs away. Basically, she ends up falling on a water pipe, and the water pipe has a piece of it sticking out, and she trips on a bar and falls like behind her neck. The thing just pierces right through her mouth, and then she starts to like drool water basically because the water is going through this pipe, and eventually it turns to blood. Her death is pretty gruesome. They have the whole funeral scene, which is really rushed. It seems William didn't give too much of a shit about his wife's death. He kind of brushes it off really fast, and they didn't really pay much attention to his emotions over it because it kind of just happens, and then he's like, oh, whatever, and just moves on with his selling corn and whatnot. Or trying to make money off the corn, I should say. There's a really awkward sex situation with Maria and Maria, Maria, the girl that started to get an interest with Joshua, and she's like teaching him what bases are because he has no idea because he's never had sex. He can play basketball like a champ, but he's never fucked. Unless you count fucking corn, I don't know. So she's teaching him about the bases like first base, second base, whatnot. And then her brother comes in and has a problem with, him being with his sister. And his main reason is because he doesn't want his sister involved with someone like him. Meaning someone, Amish, I guess. Prejudice much? Just kidding. There's a wicked scene involving the priest. That's some unholy shit right there. Eli obviously hangs him upside down and fucks with him like crazy. The priest also starts to have a lot of nightmares, and there's actually some flashbacks from the second movie, and I believe from the first movie as well, of scenes that happen with the children and the children murdering, and the scene from the second film where the guy is being stabbed with needles in that little cabin or whatever. There's flashbacks of that in this film. There's some good kills, including the priest's too, because he gets a grisly one, and then like I said, Amanda's kill. We learn that Eli killed his parents, which is a little bit predictable. And the scene where they show that he has a bunch of kids, they all have like sacks on their head. I find potato sacks in like villains' heads are really creepy, and the way they're designed in this one, they're extremely creepy. Just the way they look, and especially on kids when they're coming into the bedroom, and both parents get the hooks, like these two like sickles onto their like stomachs, and then the bed gets lit on fire and all that, and all these kids are surrounding the bed with these sacks on their heads. Creepy shit. I did find that Josh was kind of late in the game to find out that that Eli killed him in the corn at the beginning of the movie, which I found strange because I figure that he was in the vicinity. So first of all, I thought he would already have known. And second of all, I'm surprised that it took him so long to put two and two together, being that he has known that Eli was a psycho for at least 40 minutes throughout the film. Obviously longer in the story, but throughout the film, like it took him like 40 to 45 minutes just to put together that, oh, Eli killed my father, and then he starts confronting him, and I'm like, took you that long? Jesus, man. A harvest moon is mentioned, and these sacrifices or whatnot happen during the harvest moon, and Eli eventually starts to have enough followers to carry out his plans, kind of thing. And he ends up at the end of the, well, closer to the end of the film, I'd say closer to the climax, having this sermon. The dad, William, or the adopted father, William, comes home after making the business deal with these associates with this corn, and they make a plan to distribute it throughout the country and then eventually internationally or whatnot. So he goes out with his buddies drinking, he comes home drunk, and he sees this sermon going on in this like behind this complex, and he's stumbling, he's walking, he's like, Eli, what are you doing? Who's your friends? These kids have torches and they're dressed in like friggin' weird shit, and they have no smiles. They're just like, it's like, who's your friends? Want a drink? It's like, it's so, this film's silly. I'm just gonna throw that out. This film's silly as fuck. Personally, I think it's a little too silly. I liked the first two films better than this film. So far, this is, not that I didn't enjoy it too much, but so far this is the weakest of the three that I've watched. It has great scenes, it has great moments, but I think overall I enjoyed the second and the first film a little bit better for sure. I just find the whole urban thing silly, man. Like, it's too comedic and it's too unfitting for a Children of the Corn film. I want to see more, you know, I want to see more moodiness. I want to see, like, I don't want to see, you know, Children of the Corn playing basketball with urban kids. Like, I just, it's weird. I don't know. It's not terrible, but like the whole priest story and how Eli like fucks him up, that's creepy. And there's a lot of great moments like that, but I just found the film to be, the tone of the film is a little bit too silly for me to say like I love it. It's a great Children of the Corn film. And for people to like this one the best out of the three, great. But just you know, I wouldn't put this one better than the first two, or even any of the first two, really. Maria's parents actually have a good death too, because Eli ends up feeding her corn, and then he has her hypnotized, and then he convinces her to go to dinner with her parents, and then he feeds the parents corn, and obviously because they're adults, and adults are evil, they eat the corn, and then they barf up all the bugs, and start to choke to death, pretty much. Death by bugs, cockroaches. And then, yeah, when the dad, you know, stumbles drunk, he gets his head sliced right off with actually, he didn't get decapitated. What am I saying? He got slashed and died by Eli. And there's a scene too that I forgot to mention where Joshua and Malcolm, which is basically Joshua's best friend that he ends up making, Joshua and Malcolm go back to Joshua's home where he lived with Eli at the beginning of the film, and they're looking for this, basically Eli's Bible in the corn. So obviously Joshua already knew it was there the whole time. But they want to find this Bible because they know it's the key to destroy Eli. And when Joshua finds this Bible and comes back, by the way, there's a good battle with the dad from the beginning of the film, who's now a scarecrow with his eyes and mouth sewed, and like he has kind of like, basically completely looks like a scarecrow. And the Children of the Corn films are the perfect films to utilize scarecrows, in my opinion, so I thought that was a great feature to add. But they destroy him, they get the Bible. Great death of Malcolm. Malcolm's death, man, his his neck is completely stretched to like high as hell, like at least 10 feet. And his head is up there. It's fully practical effects, and like his tongue's hanging out. Totally reminds me of that scene where the spine in Return of the Living Dead 3. Return of the Living Dead Part 3, where that dude has his spine, and on top of the spine is his head, and then the spine comes down to like the rest of his torso, and his spine, his head is like here, and it's just like kind of swinging. That was Malcolm's death. Malcolm's death was grisly and practical, and I loved it. But anyways, Josh finally grabs the Bible, comes back, starts explaining that there's two parts to Eli. Basically, there's the Bible part, and then there's the Eli part, and they both have to be destroyed together for the evil to be destroyed. So, and they start battling each other. After Eli is destroyed and the Bible is destroyed, this huge monster thing that I can't even really describe the looks of. Kind of looks like an ant, but part monster, but part person. Kind of looked like that homeless guy's head was kind of part of it as well. Just this huge, kind of CGI, kind of practical monster pops out of that corn that was basically indestructible. And then now that Eli's destroyed and the Bible's destroyed, all the kids that were hypnotized and following him are now not. So this monster's trying to destroy everybody. There's a lot of miniatures used in this scene, which is cheesy, but good cheesy. The cheesy that I like. And like I was saying, with the film being silly, I mean the tone of it, when it's silly and this kind of silly, I love it. It's a good thing. So a lot of miniatures used. There's a scene where Maria gets eaten by this monster, and you can tell it's like a little toy, a little Maria toy, and the monster eats her. Joshua ends up like carving through the monster's stomach and like saving her. It's really like slimy and disgusting, and the monster is kind of practical. There's a lot of stop motion used too. A lot of stop motion used in this scene, and it's a really great climax. To fit, I shouldn't say, it's a really great climax to finish off a film like this, and it's probably, I would say, the best part of the movie, and to have the best part of the movie at your climax is fitting, you know what I mean? Not to say that there's not great moments throughout the other parts of the film either, but it's a really cool way to finish off the film, but yeah, and then that's your finale with the monster. It's a lot of fun with the stop motions and the saving of Maria. And after that, after the monster is destroyed, you basically finish off the film with the corn actually being distributed. The corn gets, like, there's these people on a boat, and then they open up a box or a crate, and then it's filled with corn, so you can tell it's going to be spread throughout the world, or the country at least, to start off. And there's going to be a lot more crazy children, and this time in the suburbs, and not just in Gatlin, in little, boondock, small town population of fucking 3. And yeah, the movie ends there. But I basically said everything already throughout the review that I think of it. I think it's really silly. I don't think it's awful, but my preference goes to the first and the second over this one for sure. The urban thing is okay. They wanted to try something different. They were doing a lot of this, like, Leprechaun in the Hood and Leprechaun Return to the Hood. They use that kind of themes and tones and stuff like that, which is funny, but I don't know. Children of the Corn and mixed with like an urban setting, it's it's meh. But Eli is creepy as shit. Eli is as creepy, if not more creepy than Isaac, and I wouldn't say he's more creepy than Malachi. Malachi, he was more, not bad. Malachi was more like sinister, not as creepy as Isaac and Eli. Eli's fucking creepy and annoying. That's another one, annoying. He's as, well, I'm not going to say he's as annoying as, what was that kid's name? Jeremiah in the first film, the long-haired kid. He's the most annoying kid I've seen in these first 3 films, hands down. But Isaac is annoying as piss, and pretty creepy and pretty sinister as well. But out of the creepy kids, the most annoying, I would say. Like, out of the main villain kids. Nobody's gonna beat that kid in the first film though. Also, did I mention that Charlize Theron makes a little bit of a not a cameo, but a first role in this film? She shows up as one of the young women that follow Eli, and she's seen in a church scene, and she's also seen in the end when Eli's making his whole sermon thing. But yeah, it's cool to see her name in this. She wasn't in the credits, but you can, like, if you look it up on the internet, she's in this film, and you can definitely tell it's her for sure. But I think I've gone on long enough, so that's Children of the Corn 3 Urban Harvest. I've already mentioned that I'm going to be reviewing the entire series, at least till... I think there's a 2020 one, but I don't even know if it was released or anything like that. So that one I would have to find. But other than that, I'm going to be reviewing them all. So, yeah. I'm liking them so far. So far, 1 and 2 are great. This one was good, I would say. Subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice, or if you like my film reviews. I will be back for lots more. Stay tuned for the Children of the Corn series. And I'm also reviewing... each episode of Child's Play and Dexter currently as they come out. So stay tuned for that. Until next time, subscribe if you like, and take care. Have a great night. Cheers.